I slept with my wife's best friend, so she left me and now they are together. This gripping tale explores the catastrophic fallout of Jack's affair with his wife's best friend, Eva. Each chapter weaves a story of passion, betrayal, and heartbreak, culminating in a life-altering revelation for all involved. The book promises a journey through the complexities of love, loyalty, and the consequences of choices made in the heat of the moment, leaving readers enthralled and reflective. In Flirting with Danger, Jack's ordinary life spirals into chaos when a casual flirtation with his wife's best friend, Eva, ignites a dangerous attraction. This chapter unravels how a simple dinner party leads to an irresistible, forbidden connection, leaving Jack torn between loyalty and desire. The cliffhanger teases a looming affair, promising a tale of passion and betrayal.
Chapter 1. Flirting with Danger, when my wife's best friend flirted back. I'm not the type of bloke you'd think would end up telling a story like this. I'm Jack, just an average guy really. I run a small business, nothing too flashy, but here I am, feeling like I've stumbled into a plot of one of those steamy novels Lily, my wife, reads. Only this is real life, and it's me in the eye of the storm. It all started innocuously enough. We were hosting a dinner party, one of those where Lily invites her friends, and I try to look interested while they chat about things I barely understand. But that night, something was different. Ava was there, Lily's best mate. She'd been around plenty of times before, but this time, I don't know. She seemed different. Ava always had this way of lighting up a room. Her laugh was infectious, and she had this spark in her eyes that made you feel like you were the most important person in the world when she spoke to you. I guess that's what made her so likable. But that night, as she laughed at some joke I made, her hand lingering just a moment too long on my arm, I felt something. A jolt, like electricity. Dangerous, but thrilling. I told myself it was nothing, just the wine making me feel bolder, the dim lights casting a romantic glow over everything. But as the night wore on, I found myself drawn to her. We kept stealing glances, sharing smiles. It was like we were both in on a secret that no one else at the party knew. Lily didn't notice, or at least I thought she didn't. She was too caught up in entertaining, making sure everyone's glasses were full, laughing at all the right moments. She was perfect at things like that, always the hostess, always making sure everyone else was happy. I loved that about her, but sometimes, just sometimes, it made me feel a bit invisible. As the night wound down, and our last guest stumbled out into the night, I found myself alone with Eva in the kitchen. We were cleaning up, the clinking of dishes the only sound in the room. The tension was thick, like a fog. I knew I should leave, go find Lily, but my feet wouldn't move. "So, Jack," Eva said, breaking the silence, her voice a soft purr. "Did you enjoy the party?" "Yeah, it was great," I replied, my voice sounding too loud in the quiet room. "You know, Lily always throws the best parties." "She does," Eva agreed, her gaze lingering on me a little too long. "But I think tonight was extra special." There it was again, that unspoken thing between us, hanging in the air like a promise. My heart was racing, and I knew I was playing with fire. But in that moment, I couldn't bring myself to care. The conversation flowed easily after that, the words spilling out of us like water from a broken dam. We talked about everything and nothing, laughing, the sound echoing around the empty kitchen. I couldn't remember the last time I felt so connected to someone, and that scared me more than I cared to admit. Finally, Eva picked up her coat to leave. She paused at the door, turning to give me one of those looks that seemed to see right through me. "Good night, Jack," she said, her voice low and husky. "Thanks for a lovely evening." "Good night, Eva," I managed to say, feeling like I was standing at the edge of a cliff. And then she was gone, the door closing softly behind her. I stood there for a moment, my mind racing. What was I doing? This was Eva, Lily's best friend. I shouldn't feel this way about her. But as I trudged up to bed where Lily was already asleep, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. A line had been crossed, and there was no going back. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, my mind a whirlwind of thoughts. I was playing a dangerous game, and deep down I knew it. But as I drifted off to sleep, one thought stood out clearer than the rest. Ava had flirted back, and that's where the real problem started.
This is Chapter 1 of a 6-part short story. If you don't have time to watch or listen to all 6 chapters right now, Why not subscribe to the Romance Diaries on YouTube and check back later, or simply stay tuned for Chapter 2.
Secret Trysts delves deeper into Jack's clandestine affair with Ava. As their secret meetings intensify, Jack struggles with guilt while being drawn deeper into the thrill of infidelity. The chapter exposes the complexities of forbidden love, hinting at the inevitable consequences of their actions, and leaves readers questioning how long Jack can keep his double life hidden.
Chapter 2. I slept with my wife best friend, and it was amazing. I'm not proud of what I'm about to tell you. I'm just a bloke, Jack, who made a choice that changed everything. After that night, after the party, I couldn't get Eva out of my head. It was like she'd crawled into my brain and refused to leave. I found myself reaching for my phone countless times, itching to text her, to hear from her again. But each time I stopped myself. This was madness. She was Lily's best friend, for heaven's sake. But then she texted me. It was nothing much, just a "Hey, how are you?" But it might as well have been a siren call. We started chatting, casual at first, but it quickly turned into something more. Flirty messages, little innuendos. It was like a game, one we both knew we were playing but couldn't stop. The thing is, it wasn't just the excitement, the thrill of doing something forbidden. With Ava, I felt alive, something I hadn't felt in a long time. She listened to me, really listened, in a way that made me feel understood, something I'd been missing without even realizing it. Then it happened. We agreed to meet. Just for a coffee, we said. But we both knew it was more than that. I told Lily I had a meeting. I hated lying to her. But I told myself it was just coffee. What harm could it do? I met Ava at a small cafe, tucked away where we wouldn't be seen. The moment I saw her, my heart raced. She was wearing this red dress that clung to her in all the right places. I couldn't take my eyes off her. We talked, laughed, and it was like the rest of the world just fell away. I knew I should feel guilty, but in that moment, all I could think about was her. When she reached across the table and touched my hand, it was like a jolt of electricity. We didn't need words, we both knew. We left the cafe and found a quiet hotel nearby. My mind was screaming that this was wrong, but my heart, my body, they were telling a different story. I felt like I was in a trance, following her to a room that felt 1,000,000 miles away from my real life. And then we were together. I won't go into details, I'm not that kind of bloke, but it was incredible, more than that. It was like we were made to fit together. I'd never experienced anything like it. The guilt was there, nagging at the back of my mind, but it was drowned out by the sheer intensity of what I was feeling. After, as we lay there, I looked at Ava and saw her in a way I never had before. She wasn't just Lily's best friend anymore. She was Eva, this incredible, vibrant woman who had woken something in me that I didn't even know was asleep. But then reality came crashing back. I remembered Lily, sweet, caring Lily, who had no idea what I was doing. The guilt hit me like a wave. What had I done? I'd just cheated on my wife with her best friend. The enormity of it was overwhelming. Eva must have sensed my panic because she reached out, touching my face gently. "It's okay, Jack," she whispered. "We don't have to figure this all out now." But I knew it wasn't okay. Nothing about this was okay. I left the hotel feeling like a different person. I was a cheater now, a liar. I'd betrayed the woman I'd vowed to love and protect. And for what? A few hours of passion. I got home and Lily was there smiling, asking me how my day was. I felt sick. How could I lie to her face like this? But I did. I told her the meeting went well, that I was just tired. She believed me, of course, she always did. That night, I lay in bed next to Lily, her breathing soft and even beside me. I wanted to tell her, to confess everything, but I couldn't. I couldn't hurt her like that. So I just lay there, drowning in guilt and confusion. And the worst part of me wanted to do it all over again.
This is Chapter 2 of a 6-part short story. If you are enjoying this story, please show us some love by hitting the like button. Please stay tuned for Chapter 3.
In Betrayal Unveiled, the precarious house of cards collapses when Jack confesses his affair to Lily. The chapter captures the heart-wrenching moment of Lily's discovery and Eva's confession, painting a vivid picture of the emotional turmoil and betrayal. The cliffhanger hints at an unexpected turn in Lily's relationship with Eva, stirring curiosity about the future of these entangled lives.
Chapter 3. I confessed to my wife that I was sleeping with her best friend. You know, they say confession is good for the soul, but as I sat there looking into Lily's eyes, about to shatter her world, I wasn't so sure. I'd carried the weight of my betrayal for weeks, each day a bit heavier than the last. The lies had piled up, a tangled web I couldn't escape. And then Lily found that piece of jewellery Eva had left in our bedroom. That was it, the moment of truth. Lily looked at me, her eyes a mix of confusion and hurt. "Jack, what is this? Why do you have this?" She held up the piece of jewellery, her hand trembling. My heart was racing, my mouth dry. I knew I had to tell her. I owed her that much at least. "Lily," I began, my voice barely a whisper. "I need to tell you something. It's about me and Eva." The room was silent, the kind of silence that screams. I told her everything, about the text, the meetings, that night in the hotel. I didn't spare any details. It was like watching a car crash in slow motion, unable to look away. Lily sat there, her face going through 100 emotions at once. Betrayal, pain, disbelief. I'd never seen her like that. It broke my heart, knowing I was the cause of it. She didn't yell or cry. She just sat there staring at me, her whole world crumbling around her. "Jack, how could you?" Her voice was so quiet, so full of pain. "How could you do this to me? With Eva?" I had no answer. What could I say? That I was lonely, that it was a mistake? None of it mattered. I'd broken her trust, her heart. Lily got up and walked out of the room. I didn't stop her. What right did I have? I sat there, alone, the weight of what I'd done crushing me. The next few days were a blur. Lily moved into the spare room. We barely spoke, just passing each other like ghosts in our own home. I wanted to reach out to her, to try and fix things, but I didn't know how. I'd broken something, and I wasn't sure it could be mended. And then one evening Lily came to me. Her eyes were red, but there was a determination in them I hadn't seen before. "Jack, I spoke to Eva," she said, her voice steady. My heart sank. I'd been dreading this moment. "And?" I managed to say, bracing myself for the worst. "She told me everything," Lily said. "She told me how it started, what happened between you two. She's sorry, Jack. She's so sorry." I didn't know what to say. Sorry, was that supposed to make everything better? But then Lily said something I didn't expect. "She's been a friend for so long, Jack. I can't just hate her. I'm trying to understand, to make sense of it all." I looked at her, at the woman I'd married, the woman I'd hurt so deeply. She was trying to understand, to find a way through this mess I'd made. And that's when I realized the depth of her strength, her kindness, and how much I didn't deserve her. Over the next few days, we started talking, really talking for the first time in a long time, about us, about our marriage, where we'd gone wrong. It wasn't easy. There were tears, moments of anger, of raw pain. But we were communicating, and that felt like a step, however small. But then, one evening, Lily came home and told me she needed space, time to think, to heal. "I'm going to stay with Eva for a while," she said, her bags already packed. I couldn't believe it. She was turning to the woman I'd cheated on her with for comfort. It felt like a sick joke, but looking into her eyes, I saw her pain, her need to find some peace, however she could. So I let her go. What else could I do? I stood at the door, watching as the love of my life walked away, possibly for good. And there I was, alone in the house we'd built together, surrounded by memories of a life that might be lost forever. I thought confessing would bring some relief, but it only brought more pain, more confusion. I'd opened Pandora's box, and there was no closing it now. And the worst part, I still couldn't get Eva out of my mind.
This is Chapter 3 of a 6-part short story. If you would like to experience your own real-life romance, possibly not exactly like this one, please visit our sponsors in the description below. Stay tuned for Chapter 4.
Unexpected turn reveals the shocking aftermath of Jack's affair. As Lily seeks comfort in Ava, Jack grapples with the pain of his actions. This chapter explores the complex dynamics of relationships post-betrayal, offering a glimpse into Lily and Eva's growing bond. The narrative leaves readers eager to discover how Jack copes with his new reality.
Chapter 4. My wife is now sleeping with my ex-lover. Sitting alone in the quiet of what used to be our home, My thoughts race in a maelstrom of regret and disbelief. It's been weeks since Lily left to stay with Eva, and every day without her feels like a punishment I rightly deserve. But what twists the knife in my gut is knowing where she is, in the arms of Eva, the very woman I betrayed her with. The irony is bitter, and it tastes like ash in my mouth. Lily, my beautiful, understanding wife, seeking solace where I least expected, with Eva. I can't blame her, though. After all, it was my betrayal that pushed her there. Sometimes late at night, I imagine them together, finding comfort in each other's presence. The thought is a strange mix of pain and something like hope. Hope that Lily finds the happiness I denied her, even if it's not with me. But the pain is relentless. It's the pain of loss, of squandered trust, of a love that I tarnished. It's funny, in a tragic sort of way. I remember how it all started. A harmless flirtation, a rush of excitement, a forbidden touch. It felt like a game, a thrilling escape from the mundane. But I never imagined the cost would be so high. The price of my fleeting pleasure is a lifetime of regret. I've reached out to Eva a few times since Lily left, desperate for some connection, some semblance of what we had. But it's not the same. Our conversations are strained, filled with unspoken words and guilt. I can tell she's as torn as I am. She lost her best friend because of what we did, and now that same friend is the only solace she has. Work has become my only refuge, the one place where I can drown out the noise in my head. But even there, I'm a shadow of the man I used to be. My colleagues tread lightly around me, their curious glances a constant reminder of the man I've become. A man lost in his own mess. It's on one of those long, endless nights at the office that I decide to drive past Eva's place. I tell myself it's just to see if Lily's car is there, to know if she's all right. But deep down, I know I'm looking for something else, a glimpse of the life I threw away. As I drive by, I see them. Lily and Eva sitting together on the porch, their heads close, lost in conversation. They look happy, peaceful even. It's a stark contrast to the turmoil in my heart. I park a little way down the street, watching them from a distance. It feels like I'm spying on a world where I no longer belong. The urge to go to them is overwhelming. I want to get out of the car, walk up to them, and beg Lily to come back, to tell her that I'm sorry, that I'd do anything to undo what I've done. But I don't. I can't. I've caused enough pain. So I sit there, in the car, watching the only two people I've ever loved find solace in each other. And as I drive away, the weight of what I've lost settles deep in my chest. That night, back at home, I pour myself a drink, the first of many. The house is silent, a stark reminder of the emptiness of my life without Lily. I wander from room to room, each space filled with memories of better times, of laughter and love, now just echoes of what used to be. I end up in our bedroom, standing in front of the mirror. The man staring back at me is a stranger. His eyes are hollow, his face gaunt. He's a man who's lost everything, his wife, his lover, his self-respect. And for what? A few moments of passion, a thrill. The realization hits me like a physical blow. I've ruined 3 lives, mine, Lily's, and Ava's. And there's no going back. There's no making it right. As I sink into bed, the loneliness is overwhelming. It's in these quiet, dark moments that the magnitude of my mistakes comes crashing down on me. I close my eyes, but sleep doesn't come. It's just me and my regrets, a constant reminder of the price of betrayal.
This is Chapter 4 of a 6-part short story. We would love to know what you think of the story, so please let us have your comments and feedback. Stay tuned for Chapter 5.
In A Man Unraveled, Jack confronts the full extent of his losses. His affair's repercussions ripple through his personal and professional life, leaving him isolated and regretful. This chapter delves into Jack's downward spiral, painting a vivid picture of a man grappling with the consequences of his actions, setting the stage for a dramatic climax.
Chapter 5. From the cheating husband to a cheated husband with a cruel twist. It's strange how life can flip on you, turn you from the cheater to the cheated, from the betrayer to the betrayed. Sitting here in this hollow shell of a home, I can't help but marvel at the cruel twist of fate that's brought me to this point. I'm Jack, and I've been a fool who thought he could have it all, a loving wife and a thrilling affair. But now, I've ended up with nothing. Lily's gone, staying with Eva, the woman I cheated with, and the irony of it all burns in my chest like acid. The days are long, each one bleeding into the next, a relentless march of solitude and regret. My business, once my pride and joy, now feels like a chain around my neck, a constant reminder of the man I used to be. The man who had everything and didn't realize it. Then one day I receive a call from Eva. Her voice is hesitant, tinged with guilt. "Jack, we need to talk. Can we meet?" I agree, a part of me desperate to see her, to feel some connection to the life I've lost. We meet at a quiet cafe, the same place where our affair began, the place where I made the biggest mistake of my life. Eva looks different. There's a sadness in her eyes, a weariness that wasn't there before. She takes a deep breath, and then she tells me. She and Lily, they're more than just friends now. They're together, a couple. She wanted me to hear it from her first. The news hits me like a punch to the gut. I knew they were close, that Lily had found comfort in her, but this, I never saw it coming. The two most important women in my life. Now together, without me. I feel a strange mix of emotions, anger, pain, but most of all, an overwhelming sense of loss. I've lost Lily, not to another man, but to Eva, the woman I betrayed her with. The irony is almost laughable. Eva's talking, saying something about hope and understanding, but her words are a distant buzz in my ears. All I can think about is Lily, the way her eyes lit up when she laughed, the way she'd curl up against me in bed. And now she's with Eva. The thought is unbearable. After the meeting, I wander the streets, aimless and numb. I pass by the places Lily and I used to go to, each one a stab of memory, a reminder of what I've lost. I end up at the park where we had our first date, sitting on the bench where I first held her hand. I sit there for hours, watching couples walk by, laughing and holding hands. They look so happy, so carefree. And here I am, alone. A man who threw away everything that mattered. As night falls, I head back home to the empty house that used to be filled with laughter and love. I pour myself a drink, then another. The alcohol numbs the pain, but it can't fill the void in my heart. I go to bed, but sleep eludes me. My mind is a whirlwind of thoughts, of what-ifs and regrets. I think about calling Lily, begging her to come back. But what right do I have? I'm the one who destroyed our marriage, who pushed her into Eva's arms. And then, a cruel thought strikes me. Was this Lily's revenge? To be with Eva, to make me feel the pain she felt? The thought torments me, a vicious cycle of guilt and paranoia. I toss and turn, wrestling with my thoughts until the early hours of the morning, and when sleep finally comes, it's fitful and haunted by dreams of Lily and Eva, together and happy, without me.
This is Chapter 5 of a 6-part short story. If you are enjoying this story, why not subscribe to the Romance Diaries, where you can enjoy other stories of love, romance, heartache, revenge, cheating and betrayal, and by clicking on the notification bell at the same time we can let you know every time we bring out a new video. Please stay tuned for the final chapter, Chapter 6.
I wish I could have seen my dark future before I decided to sleep with my wife's best friend. The price of infidelity marks Jack's painful journey towards acceptance and letting go. As he finalizes his divorce and reflects on his actions, the chapter explores themes of remorse and redemption. It leaves readers contemplating the irreversible impact of Jack's choices and his path forward in a world forever changed by his infidelity.
Chapter 6. I wish I could have seen my dark future before I decided to sleep with my wife's best friend. If someone had told me, Jack, a few months back, that my life would turn out like this, I would have laughed in their face. But here I am, living a reality harsher than anything I could have imagined. Every morning, I wake up to an empty house, the silence a stark reminder of the chaos I brought upon myself. I keep thinking about the choices I made, the moments when I could have turned back but didn't. The affair with Eva, it was like a fire, exhilarating and dangerous. But fires, they don't just give warmth, they burn, and I've been scorched to my very core. The pain of losing Lily is relentless. It gnaws at me, a constant ache that never fades. And knowing that she's with Eva, it's a twist of the knife that never stops turning. I loved her, more than I ever showed, and now she's gone, a void that can't be filled. I've tried to reach out to her, sent texts, left voicemails, but she doesn't respond. Why would she? I broke everything we had, everything we built together. I betrayed her in the worst possible way, and now she's found solace in the arms of the woman I cheated with, It's a cruel irony that I can't escape. I miss her. I miss her laugh, her warmth, the way she'd look at me with those loving eyes. I miss the life we had, the future we planned. But all of that is just a memory now, a ghost of what could have been. Sometimes I see them around town, Lily and Eva, holding hands, smiling, looking like they haven't a care in the world. It's a punch to the gut every time. They look happy, genuinely happy, and I should be glad for her, for them, but all I feel is this gnawing emptiness, a sense of loss so profound it feels like I'm drowning. Work doesn't offer much respite. My colleagues, they look at me with a mix of pity and disdain. They know, everyone knows what I did. I'm the man who threw his marriage away, who hurt his wife so deeply she turned to her best friend for comfort. My reputation, both personal and professional, is in tatters. And Ava, I thought I felt something real for her, but now I see it for what it was, a desperate grasp at something new, something exciting. It wasn't love, not really. It was escapism, a way to avoid the problems in my marriage. Problems I should have faced head-on with Lily, instead of running into the arms of another woman. The loneliness is overwhelming. I come home to an empty house, eat dinner alone, and go to bed alone. The silence is suffocating. I've taken to talking out loud just to hear a voice in these walls, my voice. It's pathetic, but it's all I have. One night I find myself sitting in the dark, scrolling through old photos on my phone. Pictures of Lily and me, of happier times. We look so happy, so in love. It's hard to reconcile that with where we are now. I broke us, and I can't fix it. No amount of apologies, no amount of regret can undo what I've done. As I sit there, lost in memories, a realization slowly dawns on me. I can't keep living like this, in this purgatory of my own making. I need to let Lily go, to let her be happy, even if it's not with me. She deserves that much after all I've put her through. The next morning I make a decision. I call my lawyer and start the proceedings for a divorce. It's the hardest call I've ever made, but also the most honest. It's time to face the consequences of my actions, to start taking responsibility for the hurt I've caused. I don't contest anything. I give Lily everything she wants. The house, most of our savings. It's the least I can do, a small penance for the pain I've inflicted. And then it's done. The divorce papers come through, and just like that, my marriage is over. A chapter of my life, closed. The finality of it hits me hard. There's no going back, no second chances. I've lost the love of my life because of a moment of selfishness, of weakness. As I pack my bags and leave the house for the last time, I can't help but think about how different things could have been. If only I had seen the dark future that lay ahead, maybe I would have made different choices. Maybe I wouldn't have lost everything that mattered to me, but life doesn't work like that. We don't get to see the consequences of our actions until it's too late. And now, I have to live with mine. I drive away from the house, leaving behind a life full of memories, of love and of heartache. I don't know where I'm going, but I know I can't stay here, in the shadow of what I've lost. As I head towards an uncertain future, the weight of my choice is heavy on my heart. I realize this is just the beginning of a long journey to redemption, to forgiveness, to finding a way to live with myself. And maybe, just maybe, a chance to find happiness again, in a life that's been irrevocably changed by my own doing.